And she starts driving really fast. I go like, why are you driving so fast? There's all these people up there crossing the street. She goes like, you pussies in Black Flag always talk about the end of the world and destruction. The destruction starts now. We're gonna kill all these fucking people.
I'm your host, Ari Shafir, and tonight the topic is psychedelia. Please give it up for Mr. Henry Rollins, everybody.
Like a lot of you, you live in Southern California and Los Angeles, as do I. And for a few of you, this is not your native city of your birth. That's my story. And many, many years ago, I arrived here in 1981 in the summer. And I graduated from a military prep school in Potomac, Maryland on the East Coast with an awful education because I resisted education. I couldn't get it. High on Ritalin for most of the time. So I was tightly controlled, yet a psycho underneath. And so I graduated from high school and I stopped taking the Ritalin and my body said, okay, the arrow has been drawn back and now it's time to let it fly. And so I went into a series of minimum wage jobs thinking, well, that's going to be my life. I'm going to live in a Bruce Springsteen lyric for the rest of my life. He's working, it's going to be tough. My feet are going to hurt, and I'm going to get really acquainted with top ramen noodles. And right around that time, I found out about a band called Black Flag from Los Angeles, and they were as angry and as crazy as I was. I'd hear their music, and finally, that's what I'm talking about. And they came out to the East Coast, and they saw me, and they said, you're pretty crazy. And I said, you have no idea. Because I'm very polite, and that throws people off. I say, yes, ma'am, yes, sir. Are you in the military? No, sir. Are you a cop? Never. Then why are you so polite? Ritalin and a lot of schooling, actually. I'm unnervingly polite, but I'm also capably violent. And so when you do it with a smile, someone almost thanks you. And so they said, hey, you want to audition to be the singer in this band? I was like, yeah, yes. Everything said, my DNA screamed yes. And so I made it. And so I jumped in this van and I came out to Southern California, and I am now running with a group of men who are older than I am by about 5 or 6 years, and they are the wise elders of Black Flag. I am the grasshopper. I am the stepchild, and I learned to keep my mouth shut and my eyes and ears open because they knew way more than I did. And so there was one particular guy in the band who I was in awe of immediately. I am in awe of him to this day. He was an intellectual terrorist. He's the first truly cerebral person I ever met in my life. He was not a tough guy. He does not fight. He doesn't do any of that. It's his mind that terrifies you. And he would have this book. He'd be always writing in this small book. He'd say, hey, Henry, come here. I'm like, yes? And I'd sit on the floor and look up, and he'd read out of his book. One day, we'll give everyone knives and guns and let them kill each other off. And the people who remain will be the true rulers of mankind. And you're like, really? How about we just go to band practice? But he was so persuasive. He wore shirts with no sleeves, so you had the biceps going. And he had this scuba knife, and he would plunge it into a can of pineapple. And he was able to open it just with his... Like, how does anyone do that? Like, he's like the alpha. And he would stab the pineapple and come out, and he just hand you the blade. The pineapple? You're like... Thank you. And he was always really intense. And one day, he looked at me and said, come on, let's go. I'm like, and so big dog takes little dog, and we're walking. We were living down in Redondo Beach. And so we're walking and walking and walking towards the sea. And we make a left into some huge supermarket. And we go right to the meat section. and he grabs a steak in its cellophane and styrofoam, tears it open, rips the meat in half, just hands me half of it. And he plunges part of it into his mouth and he's eating it. I'm like, and I start eating it too. The entire supermarket is just silent, looking at these two men. And I'm such a good boy. I was raised honest. I worked for a living. Oh, golly, don't we have to pay for this? And like, alpha males don't pay. Like, we're on the Serengeti of the South Bay. We just take meat. We are punk rock hyenas. We do not pay. And if this meat stood still long enough to be eaten, we deserve to have it. And so we walk out and everyone just says, yeah, that's okay. Have a great day. And we're like, we'll be back later. And we walked all the way back to SST Records where we were living and our hands covered in gristle. And I ate the whole damn thing. I was that hungry. And we would go to gigs and my life was changing with these adults who were incredibly intense. We would go to shows, check out other bands, and I'm a young guy. I'm looking at all these beautiful girls. I'm like, whoa, there's a really beautiful girl. Go up and talk to her. I don't have a line. I don't know what to say. Tell her about death. What? Walk up to her and say, hey, my flower child, before the streets become rivers of blood, let's get down. Now. You really want me to say that? Yeah, go ahead. And so I took everything this guy said really seriously. Come here. Yeah? Love is the monster. Okay, thank you. It was like being in a band with Colonel Kurtz from Apocalypse Now. And so everything he said, I hung on every word. And to this day, I'm still in awe of this guy because he hasn't changed. I mean, his mind is terrifying, and he's a really nice guy, but his mind is dangerous. And so one day, we're at SST Records, and he said, you know, you should do LSD. I'm like, and I am not a drug type. I'm one of those where I would probably have a very bad reaction to any stimulant. I mean, it wouldn't go well. And so I said, well, golly, why should I take LSD? Because you're a real asshole. And it would help. And since he said it, well, by golly, I better get some drugs. And so I go at everything with kind of a Boy Scout samurai zeal. Well, I better get on the phone and get into some LSD acquisition. And so there's one utterly psychotic brainiac woman I knew who did drugs. And I had her phone number, so I called her. Excuse me, this is Henry Rollins from Black Flag, and I'm calling you today. I need to acquire some LSD. And I don't have any money, really, so I can only afford a couple of ounces. So if you could find a dealer or some kind of vendor in the South Bay area who could maybe trade for a Minutemen cassette or a release by the Meat Puppets, I can vend pretty easily. She said, oh, I've got LSD. I've got LSD I bought from a leper in Studio City. It's some great shit. Well, fantastic. I need to buy whatever it comes in. She goes, oh, no charge. I'll bring it over right now. But the only rule is I get to watch. And I said, well, fantastic. It'll be a date. And so within 45 minutes of this guy saying, take some acid because you're an asshole and it'll help, the car pulls up. She had like a gremlin or something. Something just says like, I'm crazy, this is my car. And she comes in, like I think with her boots up to her knees. She just looked like an outtake from Josie and the Pussycats. And she pulls out a small plastic bag with small squares of paper. She said, here's a tab of acid. Well, fantastic. What do I do with it? She says, put it on your tongue and let it melt. Oh, well, paper doesn't melt. And at 98.6 degrees, it's a carbon-based product, certainly. But she said, just hush, don't swallow it, and just let it melt on your tongue. And so after a minute, it goes away. So we wait like 20 minutes, and I'm waiting to be on acid. And she says, well, how do you feel? I'm like, I'm fine, thank you. How are you? And she said, no, do you feel high? I'm like, I'm unable to answer that question because I really don't understand what I'm supposed to be feeling. She goes, okay, take another. I'm like, well, fine. Thank you. I thanked her for her generosity. I took another one. I know how to let it melt. And it melts. And so she said, and we've been sitting there for like, 30 minutes or so. I said, I don't know, feeling okay. I feel a little warm, but I think that's just the temperature. I'm sweating a little sweat on my upper lip. But otherwise, I don't know. Am I high on acid now? Because I think I'm still an asshole. So I don't know. And she said, well, take a third one. And meanwhile, just so you, in all transparency, she's taking them with me. So we are going 1 for 1, 2 for 2, 3 for 3. And so now we've waited a long time. She said, does anything seem strange? I'm like, nope, just spending the afternoon here with you, eating bits of paper. Are you sure this is good stuff? Trying to speak in her patois. And she goes, no, I've used this stuff before. I saw through walls and Jesus touched me. And so she was like, let's do another. Fantastic. And I figure I'm so young and intense, the acid can't get to me. That's why I'm acid proof. And so we both have 4 hits of acid circulating through our system. And she said, okay, I'm bored, let's go. So we get in her car and we start driving west towards Santa Monica. And she said, are you hungry? And I'm like, always hungry. I said, yeah, I'm always hungry, but I don't have any money. I have, like $3. And she said, don't worry, I got this. She said, we're going to eat some hamburgers. And so we are at an intersection waiting to go into a parking lot to get the fast food. And I look out the window of her car, and there's a motorcycle parked right next to me at the red light, but its wheels are still spinning. I'm like, wow. I said, the wheels of that motorcycle are still spinning. She's like, oh, here we go. And then she said, Acid 101, look at your hand. Wow. I could do this for the rest of my life. She goes, oh, you're high. And so we pull into the parking lot. She goes, let's go in and get some food. I'm like, people food? I can't. And she said, no, sit. What do you want, a hamburger or something? And so she comes back like days, eons later with this food, and she hands me a hamburger. I'm like, there. And I open up the foil and I look down at it and I start eating. I just start smashing it into my face. And then I pull it down and just look at it doing nothing. She's, what are you doing over there? I said, I'm eating an infant's head. I'm eating an infant's head. She goes, wow, this is great. And so we finish the meal or something. And then she says, let's go to the beach because you'll like seeing water. I'm like, I'll talk to the water. And we're driving, and now everything is happening. You're living next to your own mind. It's incredible. And you're like, wow, am I breathing? I mean, it's really a different experience for a guy who's never done anything more than 3 or 4 Michelobes and promptly vomited. And so there's those long parking lots along the shore, a little bit north of Santa Monica as you get towards Malibu. And it's a Tuesday, Wednesday, it's midweek. The weather is nice, so it's not weekend traffic. But there are some people in the parking lot. And so she starts driving through the parking lots going north up the coast. And she starts driving really fast. I go like, why are you driving so fast? There's all these people up there crossing the street. She goes like, you pussies in Black Flag always talk about the end of the world and destruction. The destruction starts now. We're going to kill all these fucking people. And when she floors it, you see everyone look up as they hear an engine screaming in fury as like a cheap car is being floored, and the engine's like, I can't really do this. And you see people start moving differently. I'm walking, I'm running for my life. And you see people grabbing kids and picnic items and running. She's like, they're just like ants. And I'm like, this really isn't happening. The sky is talking to the sea and the sand is screaming at me. And the first Jimi Hendrix album tales sound really good right now. And if I pretend I'm Casper the Ghost, I can float out of the car and land as a blue ball and roll all the way back to the hovel by the sea where I live. Please don't kill these people. And she slows down and looks at me like, God, you're so lightweight. Like, all right, for you, I will kill everyone I can. And so I'm like, okay, so how about we just drive? I'm trying to be sane, now rocketing on 4 hits of acid. And so we now are driving up in the canyon somewhere, and it's very, very nice, and we're driving up and up and up, and then we start driving down, and the speed goes faster and faster. I go like, shouldn't you be driving a little slower? She goes, no, it's just like a video game. I'm like, whoa, this is really dangerous. She looks at me, she said, tell me right now why I should not drive this car off a cliff and kill us both. And that is a pretty amazing idea, because the car will float and we'll live in a different life, and we'll call each other as eagles in the sky from our vision quest. No, I don't want to die. She's giving me one good reason. And I'm going through my LSD poisoned mind, trying to come up with a sane reason for her not to send the car flying Thelma and Louise-esque off some cliff. And finally I come up with it. I have to finish the vocals on the next Black Flag album, and if I don't finish it, the rest of the band will be really mad. She goes, yeah, I like those songs. Okay. You can live. And so we come down, and I honestly do not really know where we are at this point. She was like, we'll go to a Zen garden and we can look at flowers. I'm like, fantastic, flowers. And so in about an hour and a half, I went from I'm in Black Flag and I hang out with this guy who wants the end of the world and I'm a really intense guy, and this like 90-pound woman just like tried to kill people. I'm like, oh, please don't kill people. Like, sure, in Black Flag, yes, I don't want anyone to die. And so she's the heavyweight, and she totally showed me out for the fairly rational human I am most of the time, where vehicular manslaughter is really not my thing. And so we go to some garden and look at flowers, and the flowers are like, hey, Henry, how are you? They're talking right back, and it was a wonderful afternoon. And then we go back to her home. She lives with her parents. And so, like, we're going to walk by my mom and dad. Just don't say anything, like, but that's impolite. But you have to say, hello, I'm Henry. And she goes, no, your eyes look really crazy, don't worry. Because she's good at taking drugs. She can maintain. I'm all over the place. And so we walk into her house, and they're her two incredibly straight parents. Is this your friend? And so she puts me in her room and closes the door. She says, sit against the door. I'm like, okay. Am I sitting against the door? And I said, why am I sitting against the door? She said, to block it if my parents come in, I'm going to shoot some heroin to take the edge off. You're going to do what? So she ties off and she starts heating up a spoon of heroin. I'm like, what am I in an episode of like the Serpico sitcom? I mean, like, you're doing heroin. Like, wow. And so she does heroin. Like, I don't want to look. And she goes, you want some? I'm like, no, I don't want any heroin. And I did something I've never done ever since. I opened up the window of her room and just jumped out. Not even thinking, like, what's below? Thankfully, ground floor. I went, boom, the ground was right there. I mean, the window's here. But I kind of went, like, because I don't want to be in a room with heroin, because I'm too high on acid to deal with it. And the most amazing part of this incredible day was I got from somewhere in Santa Monica near UCLA all the way back to Redondo Beach, 2 public bus rides at least, with no memory whatsoever how I got back there. And I come staggering into SST like 12 hours later. I come in, I'm like, and there's the guy in the band. Hey, how was it? It was incredible, but I think I'm still an asshole. Thanks.